amazing. I'm really excited that you are all here. So I am Avery Bradford. I am head of programming and events for Female Founder Collective in the 10th house. Today you will see that we have a very stacked lineup. So we're going to kick off with a panel here in just a moment where we're going to be talking about money mindset, things like pricing and packaging, how you get to the point of valuing yourself and your services. So all of those things that we as founders and entrepreneurs and people in business struggle with really on a daily basis. So I'm really excited for that conversation. Then we'll have a 15-minute break. So this is a reminder that we will have a 15-minute break after that panel where you can refill your drinks, get some refreshments, grab a bite to eat, and then join us back here at 1 o'clock Eastern for the afternoon workshop where Marguerite will join us to talk about creating your special forces team. So anything from a bookkeeper to a CFO to accountant, she is going to cover all of that. So for many of us, especially people who are in the growing stage, those are things that are really important. So we're really excited to kick off this event. This event is partnered with Female Founder Collective and Capital One Business. And Capital One Business is supported, it's really committed to supporting businesses of all sizes, from budding entrepreneurs to growth stage companies. So that is why we have decided to partner for this event. It is a 3-week event. Last week we kicked it off with week 1. This is week 2, and then we'll have a really, really exciting lineup as well for week 3, where we're going to kick off some exciting announcements and some themes coming up for the rest of the year. So look forward to that and join us again next week. I am not going to take up any more airtime and kick it off to Jean to get the panel started.
Hey, Avery, I think I just unmuted myself. Did that work?
Yes, it did. So if all panelists and everyone on the panel want to join on screen on mic, it is time to get started with the money mindset conversation.
It's saying that we're not allowed. Oh, there we go.
My video is still not quite working, but I will get us kicked off regardless. So my name is Jean, and I am with Capital One Business. I lead our brand, marketing, and venture lending teams, and I am super excited to be here today. Oh, it is now letting me start my video so y'all can see me.
There we go.
So as I was saying, I'm super excited to be here today, moderating such a critical conversation on having a money mindset as a female founder. As a founder, regardless of gender, you're going to be faced with so many unique problem statements, anywhere from how do you think about giving out equity to how do you think about negotiating prices. We're really lucky today because we have a panel of female founders who've been there and done exactly that and done it successfully. So let me, without further ado, start to introduce our panelists. So we have Zenaida Mann, who is the founder and managing director of the Black Women's Business Collective, a crowdsourced initiative that was created out of a growing need to provide access and resources to Black and Afro-Latina women business owners who experience financial challenges in the wake of COVID-19. In response to a great outpouring of support, Zenaida has also created the Phoenix Fund to financially support new business ideas. Welcome, Zenaida. We also have with us Mandela S.H. Dixon, the founder and CEO of the Founder Gym. In 2012, Mandela became one of the first Black women to raise venture capital from Silicon Valley investors. A few years later, she transitioned to the other side of the negotiating table and became one of the first Black women to work at a venture capital firm. Now, as the CEO of Founder Gym, Mandela leads the #1 training program teaching underrepresented founders how to raise venture capital. Welcome, Mandela. And then last, and certainly not least, I'd love to welcome Rebecca Minkoff, designer, author, and co-founder of the Female Founder Collective, and also the 10th House. Today, the Rebecca Minkoff brand is a global brand with a wide range of apparel, handbags, footwear, jewelry, timepieces, eyewear, and fragrance. And actually, you guys can't see it because of my background, but I actually have my Rebecca Minkoff bag hung up against my door. It's hot orange, and it's the morning after bag. In the summer of 2018, Rebecca launched a podcast, Superwomen with Rebecca Minkoff, that focuses on incredible stories of resilience, failure, and success. She also established the Female Founder Collective, a network of businesses led by women who invest in women's financial power across a socioeconomic spectrum. As of 2021, Rebecca is now also a best-selling author with her first book, Fearless: The New Rules for Unlocking Creativity, Courage, and Success. Okay, so today's panel is all about knowing your worth. I am a big believer in defining your terms and starting from common language. So before we even dive in, I'd love to ask each of our panelists, how do you define self-worth? Rebecca, maybe we can start with you.
Sure. I think it starts with a lot of self-reflection. And for me, I'm analog. I like to write stuff down. And I simply, sometimes I'll do this exercise, and I do it a lot because I think we as women evolve, right? We have different things that we identify our self-worth with in our 20s, our 30s, after having kids. And so you need to take the time to sort of sit there and say, what makes me feel good? What makes me feel powerful? What makes me feel like I'm not going to swear, but a bad, what? And so I think that when I sit down and I take those steps, and for every woman it's different, that's when I get real clear. And I think it helps me to define my boundaries. So for me personally, taking risks, achieving things that I didn't think I could do, pulling off miracles, working with my team when we all think this is not going to work and then it does. I think those are some of the things that define my self-worth. And then other little things, cooking a good meal. I think sometimes as women, we define our self-worth by praise from others, but you're not always going to get it. And you shouldn't depend on it. And so how do you sort of be your own champion and cheerleader? Like, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did a good job. Okay, girl, what am I going to buy for myself as my celebratory thing? Like when I published my book, I bought myself a very expensive bracelet, and I was like, I deserve this. I'm a national bestseller. So I think look for it to come from yourself, and please don't look outward, because you might never get it. And that's not what determines your self-worth.
I love that. Rebecca. Mandela, what about for you?
Yeah, great answer. You can go ahead and say you a bad bee. I am so excited to be here. And for me, self-worth is like how you teaching other people how to treat you. And it all starts with how you treat yourself. And as a recovering people pleaser, I have gone to great lengths to really get centered and knowing who I am, what I'm on this earth to do, and who I want to surround myself to help me catalyze the fullest expression of who I can be in this lifetime. And so for me, self-worth is really aligned to self-awareness. You're really understanding who you are and loving who you are and who you are becoming. And that love that you have for yourself, it really does overflow. And how you show up in meetings, how you show up in pitches, how you show up on stage, it really oozes an energy that asks people, meet me where I'm at. Come, raise your vibration higher to meet me where I'm at. And I really look at self-worth as teaching other people how to treat you.
I love that. What about Zenaida? You want to round us out?
Absolutely. So I think what Rebecca and Mandela has said follows what I follow in my own life and have ever since I was 16 years old. So I have these three. The way I look at worth is in three ways, three factors, if you will. So get your pen and paper ready. So I would say, and Rebecca and Mandela touched on many of this, but looking at your financial worth, I look at my emotional worth, and I also look at my time worth. So the best example I can give in that is I have a family. I'm a family person. And for many years, people pleasing or building my brand, whatever it is that you want to call it, I spent a lot of time outside of the house throughout New York City, going to tons of events. When we were at events, networking events, giving business cards, I spent a lot of time, 4 or 5 hours each day, sometimes 2 events. And I would go home and I would feel crappy. And the reason why I would feel crappy is because my time worth, right, was being diminished because I was always out. I was always hustling, always, calling whatever it is that I called it branding, but I didn't feel good about my time, how I was spending my time. And then for the most part, I was volunteering. So when it came to my financial worth, I didn't make a dime off of my efforts. I didn't flip it. I wasn't thinking about marketing in that way. I just wanted to get out and meet people and brand myself. So when I think of what, and it changes, right? We evolve through the decades, whether you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s. I have evolved to know that I need to create boundaries for myself to say, hey, I don't mind going to an event, virtual event, whatever it is. However, Fridays and the weekends off limits, because my time is worth something, and my time with my family, which equates to me emotionally, has value as well. So again, I look at those three factors: financial, emotional, and time, as what my self-worth is. And then I create the structures to live my life within that.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love frameworks, so I'm like rapidly jotting that down. So for today's audience, you have a lot of small business owners and founders. Why is it particularly important to know your worth as a female founder? Why is this something that is so important to this audience? I'll go in reverse order this time, maybe. Zenaida, if you want to start.
Yeah, so the question is, why for a founder it's worth your time knowing your worth? Is that the question? Okay. I mean, we don't, how can I'm just going to be short with it. We don't have a lot of time. This space that we have on this earth is limited, and we know that, right? So understanding your worth and using your time wisely and what you're doing within your business is equally as important. I think that's first and foremost, beyond any type of money, just thinking about how you choose to live your life. How do you feel after you do certain things, after you invested in your business? I know there was a time when I had a 9-to-5, and I would spend those 8 hours plus working and feeling really, I love the word icky. I was feeling really icky about my experiences, but then I would work 7 to 2 a.m. in the morning on my business, and I would feel great, right? So that investment and how you are emotionally feeling. And I think about someone like Simone Biles and how everyone is just prioritizing their health in this moment. It is really important as a founder, or whatever your label, your title is, to really honor what that means to you. What is self-worth, dollar value, time value, whatever. I pause here because I think about my experiences and how much time I feel that I've wasted, although it is an experience. But it's grounded me to understand that in your business is one thing, but you have to have something else. We weren't born business owners, right? Through our years, things popped up and we were inspired, but who at your core are you, and how are you investing that time? And that centering on what your worth is really important for a founder. So you don't find yourself all in your business all the time, and then regretting it at 85 years old, just because you have a nice bank account or whatever. And that's the way I position that.
Awesome. Rebecca, I saw you'd also come off mute. Do you have something to add in this question?
Oh, I was going to say, I have two distinct views on it. I think that clearly we make less than, on average than men. And so it's up to us to demand our worth. And how I do it now is very different from how I did it when I started out. And I think that when I started out, I would do anything that anyone asked, just because it was the honor of that. And so I said, okay, good. I'm going to build a firm base. Let's just take speaking engagements, right? Anyone who wants me to speak on any panel, anywhere, I'm going to do all of it. And I never even considered that I should get paid, even though I probably should have. And then after I did enough of that and I had enough demand, I was like, oh no, now I'm going to get paid, and if they don't want to do it, I have to be okay. And you have to be okay with walking away from that opportunity, because you now know you are good at what you do. You've got your practice. They know that you can bring the people. And then you keep raising that bar to where it should be. So I look at it now as a gradient, and now I just say no to things, and I'm in a position that I can. But, like Zenaida said, time is valuable. If I'm going to leave my kids and my husband and my children, I want to know that I'm commanding some money or doing something that is far, far better community-wise, contribution-wise, that makes that valuable. So I think that if you approach it on that gradient scale, in some cases, that's great. Or like my co-founder, Allison Wyatt, taught me, you know, she said, she threw out a number of what I should ask one time. And I said, that makes me want to vomit. And she was like, do it. And I did it and we got it. And so I think that sometimes I say, throw out a number that makes you feel nauseous, you know, because the worst that can happen is someone says no, or it opens up a negotiation. And unless we ask, we will never get, because when I didn't ask, no one offered me any money. So that was my 2 cents.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Zenaida and Rebecca said. And I think about like Rebecca, you say it made me feel nauseous. And I'm like, well, why did it make you feel nauseous? Why has it made me feel nauseous in the past to put out a number there? And it's because how we have been trained, I think, in this society to really deprioritize money and to push forward mission. And really what my mission is today at Founder Gym is to let people know, specifically female founders, specifically women of color founders, that both those things can coexist, the mission and the money. They actually must, because business at its core is money. Whether it's for-profit business, nonprofit business, money is the oxygen. And whether or not you have oxygen in your tank will allow your business to survive and you to survive as a founder. So I really think it comes down to a money conversation as well. And where has money showed up in our lives, in our childhood? How were we introduced to money? How are we told to talk about money? Because one thing I really learned, having married a venture capitalist where his job is to make money, is how comfortable he is talking in millions and billions and crazy amounts of valuations. Oh, he has a Slack channel with his male friends, all talking about how much they're going to ask for their next raise and bonus and how they're making money upon money. And it really was a wake-up call for me. Like, I don't have these conversations with my friends. And so I think normalizing money conversations is so important amongst women. And until we do that, it will continue to feel uncomfortable because it hasn't been normed. And again, when the money stops, the mission stops. They go hand in hand.
If I could be just clapping for the next 5 minutes straight, I would. The 3 of you have said so many things that like hit me right in my soul. Let's get super real about it. Rebecca, you mentioned setting prices for opportunities that come to you. And you noted that one time you did it by literally picking a number that felt nauseous. What are some other like tactical ways for women founders that are just now thinking about paid, unpaid opportunities, or how to set a price, or how to make an ask? Like, what are the things, the tools that you might go out into the market and think about as you set your first ask for something?
I think it starts with asking your community. I interviewed a woman on my podcast and she said, if women talked about money the way they talk about sex and children, how much more could we be making? And, you know, so it's everyone here in this chat, you know, or your girl founder circle or business circle, not your best friend, because she might not know or have the answer. You know, I think it's important who you ask these questions to, but if you can seek out a community, what do you think is market value for this? Or what are other people doing in this space to get a ballpark? And then just inch it up a little bit, right? Because someone's going to come back to you and negotiate, or they might not, they might just say yes, but at least, you know, you can say, I canvass the market. I know what the pricing is. I know what this is worth. And I would even go so far as to ask your male counterparts. You know, I think you can find out a lot from just asking, and it is uncomfortable. But I think once you start doing it at that next, you know, group barbecue, instead of saying, how many kids do you have? You know, what are you investing in? What's the market rate for X? Did you buy any blah, 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 you know, like all the financial questions that you're just like, oh, that's private. We shouldn't ask those questions. Ask them.
I love that. I love that. What about other best practices? So one that I have is around telling the women that work for me how much I make. That I feel like is something we are all socialized to be uncomfortable about, but I want them to know what is available at the next level. This is how much you should be asking for as you get promoted into this role. What are other tactical things we can do for like the sisterhood here?
Can I
Go ahead,
jump in
Zenaida.
there? Okay. So I was going to say, here's what's very interesting about what I had to do. So I didn't just learn this from a sister circle. I really didn't. I didn't have it back then. So I was like many, I was this solo entrepreneur, just Googling and finding out stuff. But what I will say is when I got my first degree, and I was just happy to have, don't laugh, $35K a year. I could take care of my family. That's what I thought. I was young, whatever. And it was okay, right? But then as I got my second degree, the price went up. I realized that my value went up, my worth went up. I knew more. And I did something very nitty gritty. I found out I looked at my hourly wage, and I said, okay, I'm going to multiply that, right? As a minimum, this is the value of what I think my time is worth for an hour. And this is what you can pay me at a minimum. And I always, as Rebecca said, I would inch it up a little bit. Because it's really important to look at that. So I'm all about the numbers and data. So if I know all these skills, and then on top of that, for my industry, I'm helping you build a community out, I have value in what I'm doing. So let's say with this degree, my job, I was, I don't know, $50 an hour. So I'm going to say, okay, that was bare minimum for me. I'm going to say $100 an hour. I may put 110 for consulting. And this was many years ago, right? And then I would start there. And then I would also factor in, really nitty gritty. I pay consultants to do things, and I outsource projects and all that other stuff. A lot of us set prices without thinking about our overhead costs. And at first I didn't do that. So let's say I would get paid $500 in a month. I don't know how I allowed that, but either way, I would get paid that. And then I would pay out $300. I would pay out $300 just for someone that I, worked with on Fiverr or Upwork or whatever. And now I'm bringing in $200, but my website cost X amount of dollars in a month. So technically I wasn't really making any money. So then off of that, that's how I said, okay, all of this costs this in a month, whatever this set amount is in a month, and I'm going to charge double that. That's going to be my hourly rate. And I usually bill, I typically bill like an attorney. So I'm saying, hey, here's the retainer, but I've already factored in all of my operating costs. And that has been a strategy that still works for me. So I'm here for other suggestions as well, but I think it has worked for a really long time. And now I feel like I get paid what I'm worth. But I do want to say there are outliers, right? So there are situations where opportunities pop up, and it may not pay me anything near what I'm worth, but depending on what the long-term results of that could be, the potential there, I'm paying for the potential. And if that is something I think is worth it, I may do something for free. And, the point is your decision. You make the decision to work for free. You make the decision to accept $25 an hour or $3,000 for a contract, whatever it is. But again, I believe it was Rebecca who said in the beginning, you just got to get really clear on what that is with your boundaries in place. And then you just go forth. And that seems to work for me and my friends.
Yeah, and I'll just add my little 2 cents to the pricing conversation, because I think it's where a lot of people get stuck up, and there is analysis paralysis to no end here. I think a lot of pricing is perception, and it's how you perceive the value of your product and or service and how other people perceive it. Like I just got the new iPhone, and my husband got me a $12 case off of Amazon, and then he ordered a $50 case off of Apple. And he was like, tell me the difference between the two. And there was no difference except for a little Apple logo on the back, like literally no difference, the color, the quality, everything. But people pay the premium for that logo, right? And it's how that brand has positioned themselves to make people feel a certain way, feel a part of a tribe, a movement, the first on the cutting edge. And so it's very much perception. And so I think another thing I factor in when doing pricing is it's a promise that I'm making someone that I'm going to give you this much value in return for the capital you're giving me. So when I started Founder Gym, which is an online training program, I charged way less than it was worth because I knew I needed to build trust first. I needed to build trust. So I basically almost gave it away for free, but I was really particular about who my first set of students were in the program because I knew my students were ultimately my product. If I didn't deliver for them the promise of having a transformative experience going through my program, then they wouldn't have stories and testimonials to tell. I wouldn't have had nothing to market, right? So I was willing to bite the bullet on the pricing in order to get the quality students I wanted. And then once I had the transformation stories, then I increased the price because I knew the value was solid and I could deliver on the promise I would make. And now the price of the program has increased over the years, but that's also in relation to the receipts that we've been collecting. That is proof on the value we provide. So sometimes, again, it doesn't have to be you have a price and you stick with that price. As your brand increases, so should the value of your product or service.
I love that. And just hearing from both of you, I can't help but feel like you've mastered it. And yet, like, I would love to know, was there a moment, was there like an inflection point where you're like, now I got it? Or do you feel like every day you still have to give yourself that pep talk? Is there a specific story in your sort of trajectory where you're like, that was the moment I felt like I understood and could ask for what I'm worth?
So I will say just recently about setting a price and wanting to throw up, that I just literally had this feeling 2 weeks ago. I sent out a proposal to a very large organization and everything is good. And then all of a sudden I know they have, imposter syndrome and all this stuff pops up in your head, right? Because you have to attack the mind sometime and tell it to shut up. But I put something out there and it was way above what I've ever charged anyone. And I just ran to YouTube and started like looking at motivational videos. And that was my strategy, not very exciting as a strategy, but really, being okay with understanding that your value and your price has gone up, because sometimes you don't realize it. And I know this is different. It's very broad to say that. It depends on what industry you're in. So for me, a lot of things have been happening and people are contacting me and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, hey, they want to talk to me. This is good. Should I raise my rates on certain things? And again, as Mandela said, as your value, the testimonies, the messages, the DMs I get, people are just like, thank you. They're thanking me. And I'm like, okay, then I need to increase my price. I'm doing something right. Or I need to start charging for certain things. So every day I think is a learning process. And I'm constantly learning from women like you all who are on the panel, and you just have to evolve. I don't think anyone should have this money mindset of just being stagnant and not growing. It's okay. You have to be fluid in what you do.
Yeah. And I'll just say something really quickly, which is going back to what you said, Zenaida, and then Rebecca. And also I am 2 weeks away from having my second child. So like time is so important. And when you think about pricing, you also have to think about how much your time is worth. Think about what's the ROI at a minimum you must get return on investment of your time for putting in the sweat, the effort, the energy into making this solution feasible and deliverable to your customers. Like you're working for the money. It's not free money. And so again, it comes back to how much is your time worth? So another thing I've evaluated over the years as my business has grown is like, if I'm going to do this, like this is how much I must make. And so when you do the math and backwards plan into it, start with what your number is. Then you have to think about, well, the team members you need. How much does it cost to pay a team of this many people of this caliber for this long, right? What you're doing is you're forecasting, you're playing pretend, you're playing imagination, and you're going into the future to talk about at the end of 2022, this is how much money I want to have made. And this is the type of team I want to have had help me make it. This is how much it's going to cost. So that should also be a huge factor into how you're pricing things.
Just adding a small tidbit, you shouldn't forget about inflation. It is happening. It is happening at a rapid rate. So we need, if we're going to continue to make money and be able to afford the things we're doing, we should account for that. And the only other thing I'll add is Rachel Rogers, the author of How to Be a Millionaire, is like, don't forget to add in the things that make you happy. It's okay to put in the numbers that it's the bare minimum, but if getting an expensive coffee makes you happy, if getting your hair done makes you happy, put in those numbers. It's those simple things, like all the beautiful women on this panel with their gorgeous gorgeous red lipstick. I don't know how I missed the memo this morning, but like, if that makes you happy and you're getting that Chanel lipstick, like put it in, because it changes how you stand. It changes your confidence in some cases. And so we should be allowed to have money that we need to work. And, men don't go, oh, I'm not going to get the watch. We can have the watch and we can make money. It takes time, doesn't happen overnight. I made nothing for many years, but I think you have to add in those little perks that make it all worth it at the end.
I love that. It's actually Mac Ruby Woo. It's my favorite. If ladies want to get that one. Rebecca, you are in so many different domains. So there is physical product and you think about your brand there. And then there's the Rebecca Minkoff brand as an author and a speaker. When you think about setting prices and think about picking where you choose to invest your time, like how do you even start? What is your next journey? What is the next mountain?
Well, I wouldn't be able to do this without a great team. I have a great team at Rebecca Minkoff. There's an incredible team at Female Founder Collective. And so, I think, and again, learn this from Allie, hiring generals, right? You have people that can carry that baton that you can depend on to keep things going. I think where I focus my time is, at this point is somewhat predictable. I knew I was coming out with a book, so that was a bulk of my time. My fashion weeks, our Female Founders Day events and or smaller events that we do. And so I think knowing those guideposts, I guess, I sort of understand where I should focus my time, but I definitely could not do any of this without generals. So I think it's valuable to invest in them, to support them. And when you find one, they're like gold, hold on to them as much as you can. And what I would also add to that, I used to be the kind of cult leader that was like, you can come cry to me, you can come tell me anything. And I just found myself getting mired in people's problems. And that's not what I or they are here to do. They're, a friend of mine said, you are paying them money that you are not giving yourself to go do a job. If they don't do the job, if they say, well, I'm trying so hard. No, that goes away. They either do the job, they help you lay more bricks, or they don't. And if they don't, they have to go and they have to go fast. And so while I can still be empathetic, I can also be demanding, because you're getting money to show up every day here. You're getting healthcare, you're getting perks and vacation days, like make my life easier, make the team's life easier. So that viewpoint really shifted for me on who I hire and how long they get to last, which has made it possible for me to be involved in so many different things, if that makes sense.
I love that. Okay, I think I am getting you only have 10 minutes left. So on that note, this has already been such a productive conversation. I'd love to go around the horn and have any last piece of advice on having a money mindset and advocating for your financial well-being from each of our panelists. Mandela, maybe we start.
Yeah, and we're going to go to questions after this. Okay, cool. My final piece of advice about having a money mindset, I would say go back to your childhood. For me, that's where a lot of my relationship and my negative relationship with money started. I grew up in a family that didn't have a lot of money. We were bankrupt for a period of time. I had a lot of money trauma. And if you really want to be a money magnet, if you really want to get to a place of financial abundance, you have to go back and address some of the limiting beliefs and stories that are running in your mind about what money is. Because I grew up hearing money's bad. You don't want to be rich. Money's this, like, don't go after money. And it really put me on a path that I ultimately wasn't happy with. And I really had to make some addendums to the story that I was telling myself in order to make room for a bigger, brighter, more abundant future. So go back to your childhood and really address those money experiences.
+1, super formative early experiences, I'm sure. Zenaida, what about you? What is your final piece of advice for this crew?
Yeah, I'm going to say, let go of the shame and the guilt. Let it go, whatever it is that we all have it. We don't know in this panel what it is you're holding on to, but let it go. let it go and move on, keep rising, because we are all doing it and we all don't have the answers. We are all on the panel given our experiences and our tactics for the way things have worked for us and those in our circle of influence. So you really do have to let go of that shame. Easier said than done, but do those little hacks. Go look at a motivational video, join a sister circle, join the Female Founder Collective, join Founders Gym, whatever it is that you need to do to have that sister circle, have that community of people talking. But what you first have to do is make the decision to let go of shame and guilt. And even if you feel it and it's still there, say, come on, you're coming along with me. We need to go do this.
I love that. I feel like that sits well with Mandela's point. Go back to your past and then let go of the baggage from that past. Rebecca, what about you? Last piece of advice on having a money mindset.
I think that we are in a universe of quantity, right? I think it takes a lot more effort to get anything done. You know, we all think that our business is going to be like this, right? We just get to click it because we get Amazon and our Ubers that way. But your business and your success is determined by quantity, and it's quantity out. And so even when I first started, I put up a little graph. I was a nerd and I had graph paper, and I was like, how many postcards does it take me handing out in Union Square to get one sale? Great. Takes 20. I got to send out 100. Or how many editors do I have to email to get one reply? And so I think you might have to 10x your expectations of your output to get input. And so when it comes to making money, my philosophy is always like, the more I'm out there, you know, on every front, whether it's the articles, the podcast, you know, what we do with women and founders, my brand, like we have to be out, and start looking at the metrics of what brings then the money in. And I think when you can do that, a lot of the emotion can go away, because it's not someone doesn't like my product and whatever. No, you just didn't outflow enough. You didn't send out enough emails or whatever it is. People don't send postcards anymore, but direct mail pieces, like whatever it is that gets you visibility, that gets you success. And I think the more you can focus on the numbers, you'll begin to see a ratio. And then you just know it's a math game, and you keep doing what works, and you will see it make a difference.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think we have a little bit of time, and there was a couple of questions from the audience. I think the first one that I saw was from Taylor. How did you know when it was time to raise capital for your business? Before your raise, did you have a side hustle to keep cash flowing?
You should raise when you know what you want to do with the money. You should raise when you know what you want to do with the money. Raising is not the win. It's a tool to help you win even bigger. So I would say really get clear on, if you want to raise $1 million, what are you going to use that $1 million for over the next 18 to 24 months? Get clear on that. Once you're clear on that, then you may want to begin the raise.
That's awesome. Any ads?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I absolutely agree. I put a question on Twitter a few days ago, and I said, if you were to get, funding or what, I just wanted to see what people were going to say. I said, what would you do with the money? I'll tell you, every single answer had nothing to do with getting clear with what you would do with the money that you raise. It was like, I want to help women and children. And I'm like, okay, what do you want to do with it? And that part is really important. So thank you, Mandela, for that.
I would just add that before you drink the Kool-Aid, not everyone has to raise money. I know, again, we're marketed to, we see the women who have, been on the covers of magazines. I raised $1 billion, she's a unicorn. Not everyone should raise. Not every business is meant to raise. I think you should first do your homework. Are you in the type of business that does need to raise? And then there are tons of alternative forms of capital. If you go, maybe this isn't for me, because when you sign up to raise some money, you are now in bed with someone with a document that is more complicated than any marriage or any divorce for that matter. And you're going to be beholden to them and their goals. When we got our first investment with a PE firm, it was all roses. And then it was like, wait, we want to exit in 7 years. So we got to prime this company to be bloated up and sell it. And then all decisions were focused around that goal, not how do we organically grow a brand that has some nice momentum. And they were the wrong decisions. And we didn't end up being the $1 billion company that this PE firm wanted us to be. So I think you have to be really careful about what your goals are. What are your goals? The money is like a quick fix. As Mandela said, it's a tool, but then you're beholden to it. You have metrics to meet with people who really want that money back plus. And I would just explore alternative forms of capital, whether it's credit, friends and family, angels, crowdfunding, PO financing. There are tons of ways that you can grow your business, and maybe it's slower, and that's also okay. A small business in America is a 20 million down. There's nothing to be ashamed of. If you get a great lifestyle, you can sleep at night, you can be with your family and friends on nights and weekends. What else does anyone need? You know, I think we need to get off this "we all have to be unicorns" mentality that I can think can be destructive to women-owned businesses.
+1 to that. And I love the alternatives that you peppered in there and thinking about equity versus credit. That was going to be my ad, to think about different tools for different circumstances. I think we have one other question from Shelly. How do you explain to your customers increase in prices of the same products they might have purchased in the past?
Look at what Chanel does. They seem to have no trouble doubling their prices. It's insane. I think if you have a product or service, you can explain why the quality, what is involved in the make, or fair wages you want to pay your team, or inflation. I think you should bring your customer along with that story, and romance it a bit. I think people are happy if you have a mission behind you and they really understand it, versus we've just hiked our prices because we're greedy.
Yeah, and people will fall off if they don't agree with it, right? So, I mean, it's a chance you're taking, but if you believe in the value that you are creating for people and that you have already indoctrinated them, they're drinking the Kool-Aid, they're loving the product, right? We see this happen all the time with freemium models. It starts free, and then eventually, like Slack started free for me. We were loving it, and all of a sudden, like, I hit with a bill, right? So, and I'm not going to transfer my whole community out of Slack because they're already using it, right? So they also understand, like, what is the likelihood that you're going to change products, like if you love it, like. And so I've done this even with Founder Gym. I really believe that if you feel strongly about the value that you're providing and you're clear on the ROI for you, please don't make yourself a martyr in business. You are not here to save everybody else and let yourself die. I see this happen all the time with female entrepreneurs, where they put everybody else above themselves. And when Rebecca was talking about investors, you're so worried about making the investors happy that you haven't even understood the financial documents that you're signing and what it means for your financial outputs at the end of all of this, right? So it's like, be selfish. Don't be a martyr. You are here to live in abundance. Don't apologize for it. Don't feel bad about it. And part of, again, normalizing the feelings that you earned it, you deserve it, is surrounding yourself with other people of that mindset, because the vast majority of the society is trained the opposite way. They are trained to, be diminutive, play small, shrink in, don't talk about things, right? And so if you want to live a bigger, bolder life, you also have to think about where you're planting yourself. As a child, you didn't have a choice. Now you're an adult. You have to really be conscious about what spaces you're occupying in person, online, that really elevates you, because iron sharpens iron. Imagine if you had this group every day, right? Like, how would your life change? Just being in proximity to other people who are willing to think differently.
I love that. And I think that's the note we're going to close on. I think there is a 15-minute break, and then come back at 1 o'clock for the workshop. But let's give a round of applause to our wonderful panelists.
Thank you, everyone. We will see you in 15 minutes back in the same room. Goodbye.